Thank you. Thank you very much. I want to start by asking a question. My name's Don. How many fingers am I holding up? 4? Did I hear 4? All right. Not 3. Anybody think I'm holding up 3? 5? We're all agreed. 4. Good. That puts us on the same place now. This is an absolute truth. 4 is 2 plus 2 equals 4 is an absolute truth. What I want to try to cram into this next 10 minutes is the difference between absolute truth and relative truth, and what that means to us in the San Joaquin Valley, especially when it comes to ag irrigation water. Relative truth is something like what's true for me may not be true for you, what's true for you may not be true to me. And there's been a discussion about that since at least the ancient Greeks of people trying to slip their opinion in and call it truth. It's a self-defeating thing, a statement that you cannot have both real truth, absolute truth, and this relative truth. You say, so what's true for you may not be true for me. Is that true? If they say no, then they've established absolute truth. They say yes, they've established absolute truth. That's why it's a self-defeating thing. But the danger, and we're seeing a lot of this in our society right now, the danger is that facts, because facts are that truth, they're honesty and truth. That makes a fact. We can't operate under emotions for certain things. There's things like water. It's a liquid. It follows the course of path of least resistance. It's absolutely necessary for life. It is backed up by science, by math, you can predict how to make water go from here to there, even to a degree predict when it's going to happen in the form of precipitation, rain and snow. We have in California the Sierra Nevada range to our east. It's the largest reservoir of fresh water on earth. And this is where we get our water from. And along the Central Valley, at the northern end, is the Sacramento Valley. The water melts, it runs south down the Sacramento River. And remember, water goes path of least resistance, so it follows the gravity. San Joaquin River comes down off the mountains. San Joaquin River, it goes to the north. They both meet at the low spot, which is the delta. If you were to start in, I know how you ladies feel with your bra straps. If you was to start at the Oregon border and head south, when you get about a third there, you're going to find the delta. Okay, it's near the city, south of the city of Sacramento there. Now, that water collects, it flows through the Carquenes Strait into the San Francisco Bay and through the Golden Gate out to sea. So 2/3 of our precipitation actually falls north of the delta, but 2/3 of our need is to the south. You'll hear about, we're running out of water. No, not true. We're not taking water and shooting it into outer space. We've got as much water as we've ever had. It's just not in the right spot. So most of our supply is to the north, most of our usage is to the south. So what did we do? Back when America was still thriving, in the 60s when I was a boy, we built some big canal systems. We built some dams, we built some pumps. And we can move that water from the delta south. In fact, the California aqueduct, it goes along the west side of the valley. That water starts up in the delta and it goes clear to the end of the valley, southern end of the valley. If you ever go up the Grapevine heading to LA, you'll see those big pipes off to your right. That is the start of pumping all this water from the delta, flowing down to the valley and pumping it over those mountains into the Los Angeles basin for their use. What happens to the water in the Central Valley also impacts what happens to the water in Southern California. Now, by the way, that is the single largest use of power in California, pumping that water to LA. We have had a lot of changes, though, in what we consider truth. And the idea that we have to have this food, the safest, the largest food supply. If you took a pen and put it in the city, a map of the city of Fresno, and drew a circle for 100 miles, 60% of all the nuts and fruit in the United States is grown in that one area, and that is less than 1% of our entire land mass in the entire United States. 30% of our vegetables too. So if we don't get the water pumped down these canal systems, we start having to pump out of the ground. And what happens then is, if you don't get surface water to recharge your groundwater, you're going to wind up with your land sinking. And at certain soil types, it will sink to the point that it collapses upon itself. And that's one of the things we're facing now. Now, how come we're not getting that water? On an average year, 10 million acre feet above and beyond what we need is being let out to sea. They've just had some studies. Right now I'm in the middle. By the way, I've been a reporter for 35 years. I've spent the last 20 years writing about water in California. And there's a big controversy right now about this water going out to sea. Now, why did I say absolute truth and water? Have you been reading anything about this? Have you been seeing it on TV? Yes. You have. Have you seen the stories where they talk about evil corporate agriculture and the farmers wasting water? Anybody ever see that? I have. Yeah, okay. Relative truth.
About it.
Say what?
There's a documentary about it.
Yeah, there's a lot about it, but is it getting both sides of the story? Some of it is. There's a little bit of my tribe of journalists that are doing the thing, but I see time and time and time again, because I read hundreds of news stories a week on water, and they often go into this big thing about farmers wasting it, and they never interview a farmer. That's a relative truth in my book. That's not absolute. You're not telling the full story till you tell about the necessary amount of water that we need in order to continue thriving as a society here in the valley and producing so much of the world's food. Now, why do they let that water go out? They say it's to help the endangered species. Now, here's a story I bet less of you have heard about. They say that salmon need that fresh water flowing through the delta. We can't take and allow any of it to come south, because it's going to help. Now remember, salmon start up in the hills in fresh water. They go through the delta out to the ocean. They live. They come back through the delta as mature fish, and they spawn, and that's their life cycle. However, back a while, the state government planted a predatory fish in the delta. It's called a striped bass. At this point in time, the delta has been severely altered over the years. At this point in time, 90% of the outmigrating salmon are eaten by this non-native species. And the state is not doing anything about it. The state's Fish and Game Commission is not relaxing the take limit on these striped bass. Have you heard that story? Yeah. Well, there's a relative truth for you. You're not getting that full story. Now, why are they letting this water go out? If they don't, Sacramento and all the cities down the Carquenes Strait and around the bay, they like to put their sewage into the water. And if they have enough freshwater flows, if you're going to treat an area like a toilet, you got to flush it now and then. So they got to have these flows. Otherwise, they cannot dilute the constituents, the bad things that are in that water, to a small enough level they'd have to upgrade their wastewater treatment. I believe that that's not a story you're going to read about much either. So we don't have enough surface storage. We're having to pump more. So the state said, oh, this is a problem. And it is a problem. Everybody agrees it's a problem. So what did the state do? We're going to make it better for you. So they came up with a law called, you may have heard this, SGMA, Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. And it's a lot like if you found somebody starving to death and you thought, I think it'd help if we put him on a diet. That's what they're doing to us. In fact, if we don't get more recharge water, some new surface water supplies, we're going to have to fallow 1 million acres in the San Joaquin Valley. We farm 5 million acres. It's, as we talked about, it's the only place on earth that has this unique climate, this unique soil, this huge water supply in the form of snow, and we're going to have to take 1 million acres out of production. Now, what's that do to the tax base? What does that do to the employment? What's it do to our valley economy? It could be devastating. But there's a solution to that. There's an outfit called the Water Blueprint for the San Joaquin Valley, and they came up with this brilliant idea. See, now these pumps, they go directly from the river. They pump that water from the river, and that's when they say, no, we can't have that. You could be sucking fish up there. Well, they're going to dig a reservoir. They're going to plant perforated pipe underneath that and cover it over, and the fish can swim around there. This water is going to seep down. It's going to get in those pipes. Then it goes to the pumps. The fish will have no direct contact with that water supply. They float. They're all buoyant. That's a natural part of fish. Absolute truth. Fish float. Eggs float. They're not going to get sucked up. So that's, we're going to need 2 million more acre feet on annual. And remember, 10's going out to sea. So I hope that you can see that we are in a good situation if we apply absolute truth, and we're screwed if we go with the relative truth. And I thank you for listening to me. And before I go, and that long pole with the hook drags me off stage, I'm never going to another chance to say this. I don't know where you are, Stephanie, but thank you so much for putting this together. The audacity it took to believe you could do it, and the hard work, and I got to be a part of it and meet a lot of really great people, make some new friends, and good to see y'all. God bless. Adios.